What if a 12-year-old boy from the slums could outsmart a millionaire and expose her deepest secrets? A poor black boy asks a paralyzed millionaire, "I can cure you in exchange for your leftovers." She laughs, and then, everything changes. "Do you really think I would believe some macumba from a slum kid?" Victoria Whitmore's voice cut through the air of the mansion like a cold blade, her steel blue eyes fixed on the 12-year-old boy standing at the service entrance. Daniel Thompson had just made the boldest proposal of his young life. After 3 days of watching that bitter woman in her wheelchair, throwing away entire plates of food while he and his grandmother starved across the street, he had finally gathered the courage to knock on that door. "Ma'am, I wasn't joking," Daniel replied with a calmness that surprised even himself. "I can help you walk again. I just need you to give me the food you're throwing away." Victoria let out a cruel laugh that echoed through the marble hall. But what if this boy wasn't just guessing? What if he knew something her million-dollar doctors didn't? "Listen here, little girl. I've spent $15 million on the best doctors in the world for the last 8 years. You really think a street urchin like you, who probably can't even read, is going to do what no neurosurgeon could?" What Victoria didn't know was that Daniel Thompson wasn't just any kid. While she looked at him with utter contempt, he studied every detail of the woman who had become a willing prisoner of her own bitterness. His trained eyes, the result of years of caring for his diabetic grandmother, picked up signs that expensive doctors had overlooked. "You take medicine for back pain every day at 2 in the afternoon," Daniel said calmly, watching Victoria's face change from mockery to surprise. 3 white pills and 1 blue one. "And you always complain that your legs feel cold, even in the heat. How do you know that?" Victoria whispered, her arrogance wavering for the first time. Daniel had spent weeks watching her routine through open windows, not out of morbid curiosity, but because he recognized the symptoms his grandmother had exhibited before the surgery that saved her. The difference was that his grandmother had relied on knowledge passed down from generation to generation, while Victoria clung only to what money could buy. "Because I see what your expensive doctors don't want to see," Daniel replied, keeping his tone respectful despite the hostility. "You don't need more medicine. You need someone who understands that sometimes healing doesn't come from where we expect it to." Victoria slammed the door shut, but not before Daniel saw something in her eyes that was no longer just contempt. It was fear. Fear that a poor 12-year-old boy had noticed something that all the experts had missed. As he walked back to the small apartment he shared with his grandmother, Ruth, Daniel smiled discreetly. Victoria Whitmore had just made her first fatal mistake, completely underestimating someone who had grown up learning that survival required observation, patience, and a wisdom that money could never buy. What that bitter rich woman had no idea was that this slum kid carried the knowledge of 4 generations of healers. And more importantly, he had just discovered exactly what her real problem was. If you're curious to find out how a 12-year-old boy managed to see what millionaire doctors couldn't, be sure to subscribe to the channel, because this story of prejudice and healing will turn everything you think you know about who really has the power to transform lives upside down. 3 days had passed since Victoria had slammed the door in Daniel's face, but she couldn't shake her uneasiness. How did that boy know about her medications? About the exact time she took them? About the symptoms she had carefully hidden even from Dr. Hartwell, her private neurologist? The next morning, Victoria decided to find out who this cheeky kid was. A call to her personal assistant was enough. Daniel Thompson, 12 years old, lived with his grandmother, Ruth Thompson, in the Riverside Gardens housing complex. Father unknown. Mother killed in a car accident when he was 5. Private school scholarship, excellent grades, no criminal record. Typical, Victoria muttered, leafing through the report. Just another case of a poor little thing trying to take advantage of the kindness of strangers. But there was something in the report that bothered her. Ruth Thompson, 73 years old, former hospital employee, retired due to disability after severe diabetes. However, medical records showed an inexplicable recovery over the past 2 years, something doctors classified as unexpected and clinically undocumented improvement. Victoria dismissed the information as a bureaucratic error. After all, What knowledge could an old black woman from a public hospital have? Meanwhile, across the street, Daniel carefully prepared his next approach. Victoria's reaction had confirmed his suspicions. She wasn't really paralyzed. At least not in the way everyone believed. "Grandma," Daniel said, sitting down next to Ruth on the small porch. "I need you to tell me again about the signs of pseudoparalysis." Ruth Thompson had worked for 40 years as a nursing assistant, but her real knowledge came from a much older lineage. Her great-grandmother had been a midwife and healer in Mississippi, knowledge passed down from mother to daughter through generations. When doctors told Ruth she had 6 months to live due to complications from diabetes, it was this ancestral wisdom that saved her. "Smart boy." Ruth smiled, her experienced eyes shining with pride. "You saw what I taught you, didn't you?" Her legs tense when she doesn't realize she's being watched. "The muscles respond to emotional stimuli." Daniel nodded. During his discreet observations, he had noticed how Victoria's feet moved unconsciously when she yelled at the staff, how her legs tensed when something upset her deeply. They were almost imperceptible signs. But to someone trained to look for what doctors didn't, they were clear evidence. "She's trapped in her own mind," Daniel murmured. "Her body works, but her mind has created the chains." "Exactly. Psychological trauma manifested as physical paralysis. I've seen 3 cases like this at the hospital. Rich doctors don't want to treat the mind, only the body. It's easier to give medicine than to heal a wounded soul." That afternoon, Victoria received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Hartwell arrived with the results of new tests she had requested the week before, desperate to find any hope of improvement. "Victoria, I need to be honest with you," the doctor said, adjusting his expensive glasses. "These tests show something peculiar. There is neural activity in areas that should be completely inactive. It's as if your nervous system is functioning perfectly." "What does that mean?" Victoria asked, her voice tense. "It means that neurologically, there is no physical reason for your paralysis. I've suspected this for some time, but now I'm certain." Dr. Hartwell hesitated. "Have you considered more intensive psychological therapy? Sometimes trauma can manifest itself physically in ways that..." Victoria shouted. "Are you saying I'm faking it? That I've spent 8 years in this chair for fun? No, that's not it. Your paralysis is real, but the cause may be psychosomatic. With the right treatment..." Victoria dismissed the doctor before he could finish his sentence. The truth hurt more than any terminal diagnosis. If her paralysis was mental, that meant she had wasted 8 years of her life hiding behind a self-imposed disability. Worse, it meant that a poor 12-year-old boy had diagnosed in minutes what she had denied for years. That night, Victoria found herself staring out her bedroom window, watching the modest apartment where Daniel lived. The lights were on, and she could see shadows moving through the cheap curtains. A family living on an income that didn't even cover her monthly medication bill, but who apparently possessed knowledge that all her money couldn't buy. For a moment, Victoria felt something she hadn't felt in years: humility. And immediately, she choked it down with renewed anger. "That boy isn't going to humiliate me," she whispered to herself. "I won't let a slum dweller make a fool of me." What Victoria didn't know was that at that very moment, Daniel was sitting at the kitchen table with his grandmother, carefully planning his next move. He had recognized the type of woman Victoria was: too proud to accept help, too rich to value free wisdom, and too hurt to trust anyone. But Daniel Thompson had learned a valuable lesson from his grandmother. Sometimes, to heal someone, you first have to show them exactly how sick they really are. And while Victoria plotted her revenge against the boy who had exposed her most intimate lie, Daniel smiled quietly, knowing that true power always belongs to those who understand that healing never comes from where we expect it, especially when it comes from the hands of those the world has taught you to despise. The following week brought a radical change in the dynamic between Victoria and Daniel. The millionaire had decided she would not tolerate being disrespected by a smug brat, and began a silent campaign to humiliate the boy publicly. First, she called the private school where Daniel was a full scholarship student. "Principal Patterson, this is Victoria Whitmore of the Whitmore Foundation." I'd like to discuss the inappropriate behavior of one of your scholarship students, Dan.